Councillors, thank you members of the public, and thank you CEO and managers. On behalf of the Glenelg Shire, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional lands and waters of the Gunditjmara, the Jali Jali and the Boandik people and their respective cultural heritages. I acknowledge the elders past and present here at today's gathering, and through them to all Aboriginal people. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people provide an important contribution to Australia's cultural heritage and identity. We respectfully acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait community living throughout the Glenelg Shire and the contribution that they make to the Glenelg Shire's prosperity and well-being. The recording of tonight's meeting, for those present in the gallery today, by attending the public meeting of Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Council meetings may be live streamed and the Chief Executive Officer will enable a copy of the recording to the public. Councillors, it's my privilege tonight to welcome some members of the Leadership Great South Coast Community Leadership Program. The program is something that the Glenelg Shire Council has supported over many years, and tonight we have 4 current candidates with us in the gallery. We have Ms Janine Mayer from the Port of Portland. We have Kim Ayling from the Southern Grampians Shire. We have Will Kerr from the Glenelg Shire Council and Rebecca Campbell from the Glenelg Shire Council. I congratulate each of you for stepping up and to do this program, and I wish you all the very best. A record of councillor briefings. Councillors, there's a recommendation there on page 4. Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I move the recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of March 2024.
Skip the minutes. You've got the wrong page.
I skipped the minutes. I did too.
Yeah,
sorry.
Go on back one.
Go back one. Sorry.
Thank
you, Mr. CEO. Confirmation of the minutes. Councillors, that the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday the 26th of March 2024 as circulated be confirmed.
I'm going to move them. All right.
Who's no, I would second.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Those in favour? Carried. Oh, apologies. I shouldn't have written all over this page. Sorry, councillors. There are no apologies. Thank you, Mr. CEO. There are nil. Right. Now we'll move on to 5.2, the record of councillor briefings. There is a recommendation on page 4, councillors.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the council receives the record of the council briefing held on the 9th of April 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Robin McDonald. Second. Those in favour? Carried. Councillors, declarations of conflicts of interest, please. Firstly, I will note that I have a
Madam Mayor.
Sorry?
We have the opportunity to talk to the...
Did you... sorry?
we got the briefings. That's fine. I'm confused now too. Apologies, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I done that last month.
Go on to talk to you.
The wrong way.
We'll move on to the declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor, I'll start with acknowledging that I have a conflict in agenda item 9.6, the community grants round 2 for 2023-24. There's a arts and cultural grant there for the Custom Business and Development Association. I have a conflict as my husband is chairman. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also have a conflict of interest of 9.6 of the community grants, a perceived conflict of interest with recreation, the South Portland Cricket Club.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor McDonald, Robert McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 9.6, I have a conflict of interest with the fees and charges footpath trading permit as the venue coordinator at the Drury Street Creative Space. And 9.6, the community grants, I have a conflict of interest as a member of the Woodturners Guild and the Portland Bay Press.
Thank you, Councillor Robert McDonald. Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've got a conflict of interest with item 13.1, rating agreement, which relates to my employer, and item 9.6, community grants, with United Way Glenelg. The application was by a family member, the community strengthening section.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a conflict in 9.4, fees and charges, footpath trading fees. My wife is an owner of a business in the CBD of Portland.
Thank you. Thank you. For the members of the public, councillors must declare a conflict of interest, whether they have a general or material conflict, and that's what we've just been noting in those particular items on the agenda. We'll move on to item number 7, councillors. Councillor activity reports. I'll start by asking Councillor Robert McDonald, you attended a 90th birthday.
I did, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I attended the Lorna Oakley family birthday party up at Bupa. It was a lovely event. Attending that to not only meet the family but also to see her so well and fit and happy in that facility that we have in the community, which is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it is, and I think the family get a lot out of that, and I suppose it's a good time to just digress and say, you know, council does recognise significant birthdays and significant wedding anniversaries, so members of the public can just go to council's website or one of our customer service officers and nominate their family members for that recognition. Councillor Carr, would you like to note any of the items that you
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Attended the Relay for Life in Portland. It was well attended and they raised a substantial amount of money for a very important cause that touches most of us at some point in our lives. The listening post at Narrawong, big attendance out there, highly engaged community. It's a growth area for our Shire. And they've obviously got some great vision for how Narrawong, Alistair and Dutton Way should look in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you may indulge me, I did some training during the last period, and I wouldn't actually mind going through a little bit of that training. I'll try to stick to my 2 minutes. Regarding gender equality for councils, particularly a gender impact assessment. It was an online course that's, I guess, now a requirement for local government, so it's something we're all going to need to get our heads around. I'll actually cut this down quite a bit because it's quite lengthy. Essentially, this council's actually already done a gender impact assessment when we did the EV charging stations. So it's quite simple as when we're looking at a piece of infrastructure, we look at it through a different lens. And if I was someone from SA, a female from SA that's just received her Ps, so 16 and a half, and I happen to be travelling through Portland in the dead of night, I need to recharge my car. It's quite easy for a male to go anywhere and do that, but obviously with a young female, there is certain concerns. So you still want to look at lighting, facilities that are available, and it's really looking through a lens on the gender, Madam Mayor. And I think that's quite important, and we can drill that down to not only budgets, but particularly assets in the community, and where we actually spend our money on those assets, and how that actually impacts particular genders of the community. And I'd use Alexander Park as a really good example. If you asked the ratepayers there that use those facilities, you would have 90 out of 100 that go, fantastic facilities, love them, thank you very much for the council. But we could drill down into, say, those 10 that might not be 100% happy, and they might be females because they are specifically for football. The netballers may have got overlooked a little bit. They still have facilities there. So we start drilling down in where our money's actually spent and actually spending it evenly. Now, I bring that example there because sport's a really good outlet for community members. It provides growth, teamwork, really positive outlet, and it's important that we actually spend our money in both male and female as well. So I'm speaking about that forever. It was really
So
good
you
to
might
go
like to
through.
share that report with
I
your
would
fellow
love to, Madam Mayor.
councillors. That would be much appreciated,
Thank you.
Councillor Martin. Thank you. Councillors, I had the opportunity to meet our new Cost Border Commissioner this month in Brett Davis. It's a really important position for us as a border community. And I also had the privilege of going to Warrnambool to go to the Southwest Community Sports Award and see the Hayward Basketball Association being recognised, and also the Volunteer of the Year in Clarkston Ray. Councillor Carr and myself went to Doon, and we went to the intermodal hub and had the opportunity to do more advocacy on the Maroona-Portland rail line recently. And of course, I think that the opportunity prior to our March meeting in Merino last month was a great opportunity for us to chat to community members in Merino as well, and allow them to share some of their thoughts about their community and their needs. There's a number of meetings there, councillors, but I will ask somewhere along the line if we could just take those activity reports. What are we going to do with that? Nothing. Note them. Any other further commentary? Councillor Northgood?
Oh, pretty humble.
Pretty humble?
A little bit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
fine. Thank you. Thank you to those councillors that put forward an activity report. And there's a recommendation there on the top of page 6, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll move the recommendation that Council notes the councillor activity reports for the 13th of March to the 5th of April 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Robert McDonald. Councillor
Second,
Carr.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Those in favour? Carried. Councillors, number 8, correspondence. There's a recommendation there on page 10. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the recommendation that Council receives the correspondence from the Honourable Melissa Horne MP, Minister for Local Government, sent on 15th of April 2024. 2, that the Mayor, in consultation with councillors, draft a response to the recommendations outlined in the letter. And 3, that the draft response be presented by the Mayor for consideration and adoption by Council at the meeting on the 28th of May 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Can I have a seconder,
I'll second
please?
that, Madam
Councillor Northcote was first.
Okay.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wouldn't mind reserving my right to speak to this item.
Yep. Councillor Northcote, did you want to speak to this? No, that's fine. Councillor Martin.
Any other council?
Anybody else?
No.
No.
Straightforward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking through the report, it's quite sobering to read, and it's out in the public domain, so it is there. Obviously, a lot of little stories that go to paint a bigger picture that was disheartening to actually read. I'm not going to stand here and point fingers or draw too much attention to that. But before I do finish any commentary, Madam Mayor, there is something that doesn't sit right with myself. And there's no other way to do it other than address it head on. On page 9 of the report, it addresses how councillors contributed significantly in making this an unsafe workplace. And they even made the inference that the monitor was surprised there was no work to cover claims. So, Madam Mayor, all I can say is that I'm sorry. I'm sorry to those that have left and those that are thinking about leaving this council. You came to a place wanting to work and do and add to the community, work where you can make a difference. We took those ideals and turned them into a job that became laborious. Those ideals no longer appealed, and it became like any other job, and so diminished it and those people in the process. And we are for the lesser for that, Madam Mayor. However, for those with a vested interest, one of my favourite sayings, which could not be more appropriate, is the night is darkest before the dawn. To move forward, we need to acknowledge and address those issues that the monitors have brought up, and in doing so, we can do that, councillors, I believe. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Any other councillors wish to respond? Commentary? Okay, councillors, I think we will be working through this and we will be responding to the Minister's request on this item. It's been moved by Councillor Martin and second by Councillor Northcote. Those in favour? Carried. We'll move on to our management reports. 9.1, the Councillor's quarterly expenditure. There's a recommendation there on page 11. Councillor Carr. A seconder, please.
Thanks,
Councillor
Madam.
Alistair McDonald.
I move the recommendation that Council receives the Councillor's quarterly expenditure report for the period 1 January 2024 to 31 of March 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. It's been seconded by Councillor Alistair McDonald. Any queries, any clarification needed? Quite straightforward. Those in favour? Carried. Move on to 9.2, the Audit and Risk Committee minutes of the 7th of March 2024. Mr Hole, would you like to speak to this first, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Audit and Risk Committee is a high-level advisory committee that assists Council monitor and review its financial and operational exposures. Its quarterly meeting was held on the 7th of March. The items discussed are listed in the agenda for councillors tonight. In accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, the minutes are presented to the next available council meeting to ensure the council is fully informed of the matters involved. In addition, the Act requires the compilation of a biannual report to be presented to Council on the actions from the previous 6-month term. The document there is attached is from the 1st of July to the 31st of December 2023. Both documents are presented to Council adoption, and the minutes containing the confidential reports are provided for councillors in the confidential section of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr Hole. Any questions of Mr Hole? Thank you, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr Hole, I believe we're advertising at the moment for independent members. Is that correct?
Through the chair, so that is correct. So we have a maximum term of independent members on the committee. We do like to have up to 5 members. I think we're down to 4. There is also a member that at the end of the year or start of next year will cease their term. So we'd certainly encourage people with the appropriate skills and attributes to have a look and download a pack. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hole. Any other questions, councillors? No? There was a recommendation there on page 24, page 14.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I move the recommendation that Council receives the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 7th of March 2024, that Council receives the Audit and Risk biannual report for the period 1st of July 2023 to the 31st of December 2023 in accordance with section 54(5)(b) of the Local Government Act 2020.
Second motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Carr.
No further comment, Madam Mayor. It's pretty straightforward.
Thank you. And perhaps, councillors, I'll just take this opportunity with the biannual report to thank the Chair and the members, the independent members of the Audit and Risk Committee for their time that they dedicate to this service to Council. It's much appreciated. Councillors, the recommendation as tabled on page 14 has been moved by Councillor Carr and seconded by Councillor Wilson. Those in favour? Carried. We'll move on to item 9.3, the Glenelg Shire Council Financial Report to end of March 2024. Mr Hull.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some of the key points in the finance report. Total income increased by about 4.8 million over the month. Predominantly that's due to a road to recovery grant that we've been pending and referred to at the previous month. And is now tracking, income is now tracking approximately 1.5 million over budget. That's predominantly due to the early payment of the roads to recovery component that we weren't expecting at this particular time. Our statutory fees are tracking higher, mainly due to more development fees than anticipated at budget time, but also offset by the aged care transition, which was included in the original budget. Total expenditure has increased by approximately $1 million since the last month, but it's still under forecast by 1.9 million. That is made up of two main areas. Our employee costs are $1 million under forecast, again probably mainly due to vacancies and recruitment process, and our materials and services are also tracking under what we'd hope to be at this particular time. Our cash position has increased with the grant funds received through March, although we do have some $10 million of capital work still scheduled for completion in the next 3 months, and if that goes according to schedule, we'll also be looking at drawing down the loan by the 30th of June. There are a number of variables in that matter. Capital works expenditure increased 767k during the month. Overall, the finance report showing that tracking really quite well to budget when you consider the amount of dollars involved and the amount of movement that we've had over the 9 months now. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Are there any questions of clarification? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Hole, I think you alluded to this, but in the finances, there's a hint where we're at with our road making fixing as the season is drawing to a close, and where we are, where we want to be, and if not, why not? That might be maybe not your question.
Through the Mayor, it probably may be better to refer to Mr. Husband, Director of Assets.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
capital
Husband.
program.
Could you answer that question? Thank you.
Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. In fact, our actual expenditure to date is about $1.6 million, and we have another $5.7 million on order. So there's a number of rather large projects. We have local freight roads, the Heathfield-Lindsay Road, the Munbanel-Wannon Road. We also had a number of rehabilitation projects underway as well, so there's quite a financial, substantial commitment there underway, so we're committed to actually delivering those projects this financial year.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask a follow-up question, Madam Mayor? Mr. Husband, I just noticed other shires seem to be spending a lot more than Glenelg Shire with regards to that sort of road making. Is there anything that's hindering us? Have we got issues there? Because we don't seem to be spending, somebody rolling these amounts over. We don't seem to be getting there.
We have inherited a fair chunk of projects that have been carried over a number of years. We are working our way through them and we are tackling them as best we can. In terms of actual expenditure and the rate of expenditure, it depends on what our contractors can deliver as well. So there's a number of factors out there that influence that.
So it's a supply issue where there are not enough workers to actually carry out the roles in our neck of the woods?
Partly that, and also our ability to actually get those projects on the road as quickly as we can. So as I say, it's inherited over time, and we're working our way through that backlog at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Husband.
And Mr. Husband, perhaps the weather conditions haven't been that favourable for a strong road making season this particular summer.
Yes, through the Mayor, yes, we're keeping our fingers crossed on that delivery schedule.
Yes, it's been a very difficult road making season. Councillors, any further questions on the financial report for the end of March? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just another one. Mr. Hole, this might be for you. What is the equity reserve and why was it done and why is it important in the actual budget there?
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Perhaps you can clarify the question a bit further.
Sorry, yes, Mr. Hole, yes, on the, hang on, I'll just bring up the budget was there. I noticed there's a line item with equity reserve. Mm-hmm. Obviously that's to do with updating valuations with some of our assets. So I was wondering why that's important to have the values updated in our assets, why that's a line item and where we're at.
Well, for the first part, obviously, through the Mayor, so the valuation of our assets is critically important, particularly when looking at renewal. We said we have $450 million worth of assets. We'll touch on that a little bit in the next report to do with the budget. Our reporting of renewal rates will need to be accurate to know how much money we need to spend on those assets to maintain it to a level fit for service delivery.
That's perfect. What I'm hearing is we need that figure to be correct so we can get within the margins, or not margins of error, an area where we're spending enough money on assets to keep them updated. Is that correct? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? If not, there's a recommendation on page 17 now. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move the council receive the financial report for the period ending March 2024.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair McDonald. Thank you, councillors. It's been moved by Councillor Martin and second by Councillor Alistair McDonald. Those in favour?
Madam Mayor, do you mind if I speak to the item?
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Sorry. I thought you had spoken. Yes, you can speak to the item. Sorry.
Thank you very much,
Sorry,
Madam Mayor.
councillors, just wait one moment. We're being distracted over here.
Yeah, I'm about to try.
It's all right. Stuart, it's all right. Just Stuart. Something's dripping. Okay. Okay. Sorry, we're being
Do
distracted.
we want to
over
call
this
a time out, Madam Mayor? or
No,
are we
no,
right to
that's
go?
fine. No,
We
no.
were aware of it, there was a plumber here earlier.
That's all right, Mr.
We have a
Husband.
leak.
It's okay?
Director
Okay,
Saxon's
let's
fine.
resume. Sorry, Councillor Martin,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it short and sweet.
No, that's right.
Capital Works rollovers are making it very hard to tell a story in 2 minutes. We've got to speak while pointing to the budget and actually understanding it. I can assure residents that we're not coming out with what looks like to be a spare $8.1 million, but we're working hard to actually break even. I think there's some commentary there by Mr. Hull that we're looking good at the moment for a slight surplus, I believe.
Sorry, Councillor, are you referring to the budget or the finance report?
Finance report. Sorry, yeah. We're on track, Madam Mayor. I'll end it with there.
Thank you. Councillor Alistair McDonald, did you want to respond?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. It's been moved by Councillor Martin and second by Councillor Alistair McDonald. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to item 9.4, the Glenelg Shire Council draft budget and draft fees and charges for 2024-25. We do have
Madam Mayor, I'll move that the item be split
Thank you.
and the draft fees and charges be dealt with after the budget process.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
Happy to
Councillor
second.
Carr, thank you. Councillors clear on what's that? Yes, all those in favour, exactly right. Thank you. Councillor Northcote, yes. So we're going to deal with items 1 and 2 first of all.
No,
No.
not
No,
two.
sorry.
The motion actually
No,
means
what's the motion?
what we've split. and
We've
why.
split off the draft fees and charges. Oh, no, you haven't.
The motions are all
Oh, they're all in together.
so I'm not sure
Oh, we're going to have to
what
take
the
them out.
intent of the mover was.
Sorry?
I'm not clear what the intent of the mover was in terms of what you've moved.
Well, the intent is for us to have 7 councillors at the table for the discussion with the budget process, and the fees and charges to be dealt with separately.
Okay, can I suggest a slightly alternative way of going about it? We need to identify exactly what we're going to do, what we're going to split off. So the first thing we should do is just clarify which particular items that individual councils have a conflict with, and I understand that 2 councils at least have conflict with the fees LL008, LL009, LL007 and LL033. And if that's the case, then those councils need to declare that conflict, and then we would deal with that item, that narrow item on its own, and then those councils could return.
I'm happy to amend the motion to account.
And then we need to do the same thing for another conflict I believe we have.
So the motion will be, and you'll
Well, the motion is that the footpath trading permit, and there are 4 of them, are dealt with separately. We deal with them
that the
first.
fees and charges in relation to the football trader permit are dealt with separately.
Yes.
Right?
And,
Happy to second.
and the second one is that there's another conflict I understand, which is for something else?
Community grants.
Or you're not declaring that?
No, I won't declare that. I think
Okay.
from advice from yourself and the monitors, I'm fine.
That's fine. So we just need to deal with that motion. The people with the conflict leave the room while we deal with it. So that
So-
motion you're moving first. that'll be
Move the
split.
motion first, Gilbert. So we're moving the motion, you're amending that motion for the fees and charges to deal with the footpath trading fees and charges, which is in 4 sections.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That needs to be passed and then...
And that's been moved. And second, Councillor Carr. Those in favour? Thank you. We will deal with that first. So those that have the conflict of interest in the footpath trading fees and charges can vacate, please.
Is it?
Thank you, councillors. I'll just give a brief explanation to the gallery. Those councillors have either employed or own businesses in the central business district where they're subject to a particular charge for footpath trading, which is about putting items out on the footpath or signs or anything like that on the footpath. So that's a particular part of the fees and charges. So we've just taken that part out of the actual overall fees and charges. How many fees and charges would we have in all? Hundreds. Hundreds. So we've just taken that particular section out.
Page 30.
Page 30.
Thank you.
So councillors will now deal with just that component of the fees and charges. Councillors?
Can I recommend a resolution to deal with that? So the resolution would be that the fees and charges L008, L009, L007 and L033
Yes.
be adopted for the purposes of consultation with the public.
I'll move that.
Yep, that's fine.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
You happy to do that?
Yep.
So you're quite clear? It's just in relation to the footpath trading, L008, 009, 007 and 033 be adopted for the purpose of public consultation. Been moved by Councillor Martin and second by Councillor Alistair McDonald. Those in favour?
They want to speak.
So carried.
No.
Do you want to speak to it?
Oh, does anybody want to speak?
Okay.
I do want to speak. I'll just stop doing it. Okay, you got the others. Councillors, we'll now deal with the whole of the draft budget plus the draft fees and charges, excluding any discussion around the footpath trading item that we've just dealt with. Councillors. Mr. Hole, would you like to give an overview of the item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The development of the 24-25 draft budget included an extensive review of staff together with a number of community budget information sessions held around the Shire. Our expenditure requests were considerable. The majority of them are excellent proposals that deserve to be funded. The reality is that there's insufficient income to include many. The budget document, however, does itemise several submissions that have attracted funding in the draft budget for council consideration. The end result that we have is a responsible budget focused on addressing a backlog of capital works and a modest capital program. The operational result, including depreciation, shows a $2.1 million deficit. However, that can be a little bit misleading from an operational cash perspective. So if we're excluding all the capital works from that particular figure, we forecast an expenditure of $49 million with an income of $54 million. That leaves a balance of just over $5 million to go towards the capital program. The proposed capital program, however, is $7.9 million, focused predominantly on renewal or maintaining assets in the condition. Again, the budget document outlines these specific allocations. It's important to note that this is a similar renewal amount to that of previous budgets, and that does not necessarily address the renewal gap. Essentially, Council has more assets than it can afford to maintain at this time. The total general rating income is proposed to be in line with the rate cap of 2.75%. However, council expenses do continue to increase at a much higher rate than that rate cap. Property values have remained steady, which means that the majority of ratepayers should, if the budget's adopted, expect a rating increase close to the 2.75%, depending upon any significant individual valuation movement. Our cash position at the 30th of June in this draft budget goes down to $3.3 million, which is cause for a little bit of anxiety, as it's well below our 20% of our own source revenue target. It's not something we've delved into before, but simply in order to fund the projects that we've got underway, there does not seem to be another alternative. In regards to the fees and charges, noting the earlier conversation, there are over 500 fees and charges across the breadth of council services. We've undertaken a very strong comparison with other councils. The Glenelg Shire's income stream from this source is actually significantly lower than our counterparts. We've undertaken extensive reviewing, including benchmarking where appropriate with other councils, and also looked at actual cost recovery of some of these fees and charges. 293 or 73% of the fees and charges in the draft are at the rate cap or lower, although it's important to note that fees and charges aren't rate capped. It's something that Glenelg has traditionally applied the rate cap to fees and charges for a number of years, and that may be partially why our income from this stream is lower than some of our counterparts. Forecast to receive $3.7 million in fees and charges in the draft budget, which will be an increase of $247,000 from the current year. It's recommended that Council release the draft budget, inclusive of the fees and charges, for community feedback, and Council can consider the feedback at the Council meeting in May. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Councillors, questions?
I'll go, yeah.
Oh,
I'll be there for a while.
I can go.
Councillor Carr?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, and bear with me, I mean, we got our copy of the draft budget on Friday at midday, so I do have a few questions, and I'll just go through them in page order if that helps. Just we'll start on page 8, the emergency response has gone up by 50k. Just some commentary on that, please.
One of the things that we're actually advertising or included in that is some work to renew the municipal emergency management plan. It's done every few years. And there's also a requirement to update the fire management plan. So there's been an allocation put into that budget which wouldn't have been existing in the previous one.
Thank you. On page 12, I'd just like to highlight the work that Council did around the aged and disability service and the reduction there of the expenditure and income. Down the bottom of that page, 63k, we've gone up. 60k increase in our deficit for the community development and wellbeing. That's the health and wellbeing plan, I assume.
Correct.
The Visitor Information Centre on page 15, there's an increase there of 71k in our expenses. Do we know what's driving that?
I might have to refer to that one. I believe it's to do with staffing costs. In particular, it's highlighted there some costs associated with cruise ship visits that wasn't included previously.
Okay. Page 16, waste management. a deficit there of $1 million. Can you run me through how that works, please? We had a deficit this year of 765 and now we're up to $1,044,000.
So, Council, that obviously reflects essentially the cost of running the waste transfer stations. Through the fees and charges, we do not recoup under full cost recovery for running those particular centres. So there is a gap basically between the expenses that are going up for council to run a service and the fees and charges that we try and recoup back to provide with them. We also are mindful in this particular field, although we do benchmark against our counterparts with that the offsets of having increased costs at waste transfer stations can lead to dumping in public spaces as one example. If any other director, Mr. Husband, if you wanted to add anything, feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll. Through the Mayor, there's also an increase in the curbside collection forecast as well. A number of extra premises will be able to access that.
Thank you. The public buildings and foreshore management, there's no income when in previous years we had income in that space.
Councillor, I believe that was actually the insurance claim for this particular building following the storm.
Thank you. Page 17, there's under quarries, there's a negative 50k in income. Are you able to explain that?
I might defer to Acting Chief Financial Officer. There is an explanation, but I'm not sure if I can do it justice in the explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Campbell.
I'd like to introduce Rebecca Campbell, Acting Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, David. I believe it's just a misclassification of that expenditure. It has gone to revenue instead of expenditure. So.
Thank you. Page 18 under asset management and maintenance, there's a listed item there. Look, it's gone up 531k, but the mechanical workshop costs for 487k. What's the scope of that work?
Essentially, predominantly through our Haywood Works Depot, we run servicing, mechanical repairs of council's fleet. That's just itemising in that large pool how much that particular function is budgeted for.
Yeah, okay. But was that not previously included under that line item? Forecast for this year is 345. Historically, it was 873, and we're going back to 876.
I might have to take that one on notice, Councillor. Okay.
Thank you. Page 19, corporate governance. Expenses have gone up quite a bit. The council elections, and there's a gap there of 77k.
In the draft budget, you might be aware, Councillor, that we're advertising for a governance manager position. It's a new position that was not in the previous budget.
Okay. Somebody else want to have a go for a minute?
You've taken some of mine.
I
can find one though.
Oh?
I've got a couple.
Well, I can keep going.
Might cross a line off, go for it.
I suppose
Page, please, Councillor Carr.
first question is what...
Councillor Carr, page, please.
We'll start at 29, if that's all right. How many full-time equivalent employees do we currently have at council?
I believe it's approximately around 263, although we do have a number of variances.
Okay. All right. I think what the question relates to, we did a lot of work in the aged care sector, and there was a number of FTEs attached to that work, how many FTEs reduction did that end up equating to for the organisation?
I think you'll find it was about 14 positions that equated to between 6 and 7 EFT.
Yeah, okay. That'll explain. In the last year's draft budget, we were planning to have a total FTE count of 263. This year's budget has an FTE count of 271.8. What are those 9 FTEs? What's driving that?
There is a number of different factors for that. In some terms, we have new positions, as I mentioned, the governance manager role, which is not a position that existed before. We also have movement in and out of funded positions, particularly in childcare. That has a variation to when it actually finishes. We also have a number of positions that are such as an apprentice that would go from being cost recognised in materials and services. They finish their apprenticeship, they'll now go into employee costs. So the number of individuals is actually still the same on the ground. However, where their cost base is attributed to changes from under a contract through a group apprentice scheme up to employee. So there's a number of variations as that. We also have, in an organisation with, while the EFT's around 260 to 270, there's probably over 400 bodies that are actually involved in the Glenelg Shire Council in total. We also have a number of people that, through personal circumstances, for example, scale down their hours or increasing up due to family commitments. That also has an increase in the FTE.
I suppose in summary, have we recognised, so 14 from aged care services plus 1, so the differential should be 13. Is that plus the apprentice? Is that what you're saying? So the differential should be 12.
I think the executive team basically goes stringently through the positions. I think we're looking at there was a net change of about 8 point something EFTs that we went through just in preparation of the budget. And I said it's not quite as simplistic as just putting it in a number. There's probably about 6 or 7 different particular aspects that need to be considered when dealing with how a position is there or how it's actually not. It's not just simply a new role here or there.
Okay. And the budget considers that we're at full FTE?
Correct.
It doesn't consider our any vacancies?
Correct. No, it's budgeted for the full amount.
Okay. And our average rolling vacancy year to year is between 5%?
I don't have those figures handy, but we certainly do monitor things such as our turnover rate, and that could be anywhere between 10 to 15%. As you noticed in the earlier finance report, our particular employee expenses are $1 million under budget at this time of the year.
Yeah, I understand. For the funded positions, have we forecast the income for the funded positions as well?
Yeah, so a funded position, like the example I used before, Councillor, will have a straight in and out, but it might show up as an extra FTE here, but it'll also be additional income shown there.
Okay. Thank you. On page 34, I just want to clarify under the fair go rate system compliance that the base average rate paid per assessment will actually go down by $5 compared to last year after applying the rate cap and washing it across all ratepayers.
That's correct, Councillor, due to a number of new assessments coming online.
We'll go to page 36. The total capital grants in the budget is $3 million.
Correct.
Last year, 23.9 million. Any comment on what's driving that?
I think that's one of the biggest things, and I even hear it particularly from a state level as well. Glenelg Shire in particular was very fortunate with a lot of non-recurrent capital grants over a number of years. We had the LRCI funding of 4 different stages, which was about 6 or 7 million that didn't require any council contribution. The state government economic climate with grants is that there's looking at cuts obviously to state projects as well. We are certainly not forecasting much in the way of capital grants going forward. We do, however, for our operating grants through our Victorian Grants Commission, we still are expecting that to come through, and we've forecast an increase of 2.75% on that particular income. That normally hits right at even before the start of the financial year. But the capital component with new projects, we're not going to get funding for, and with a focus on the budget, our ability to be able to deliver with the backlog we've got, it's probably not necessarily such a bad thing in order to be able to catch up with a $13.5 million capital works carried forward.
Thank you. Page 37, materials and services. Utility costs are forecast to go down by 72k. Can you explain that, please?
It's difficult to explain, Councillor, I will be honest. This time last year we were looking at significant rises in utility costs. As I mentioned, council officers had a stringent review of our expenditure to date and compared to what it was to forecast. In particular, I noticed that our street lighting hadn't increased as what was forecast. So not only was there adjustment made to the current financial year in preparing the budget, but also reduced to what we think our expenditure is going on current rates into the new year.
Thank you. Page 42, might be an infrastructure question. Building renewal works, fire panels. What is that project?
Yeah, through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Good question. There's a number of buildings have non-compliant panels, so we're upgrading those panels. It's an ongoing process. It's simply due to the age of the buildings.
I'm assuming Councillor Martin will talk about asset renewal.
Well, I was actually, yeah, I will. I can. I've got some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hull.
Councillor Carr, continue asset renewal. That will save me from asking the questions.
The asset renewal on page 46, the forecast for the end of this year, 89%. What's driving that? And then it drops back to the budget. Our budgeted figure is, we'll say 60 for the sake of the discussion.
Council, that is simply to do with what we talked about with those capital projects as well, how many capital projects there were in the 23-24 year, which actually almost provides a false in what our renewal rate is. Whereas now we're going back, we're not having that many capital projects, the renewal rate is reflecting more to what is appropriate.
Thank you.
I can go back to that question took on notice earlier. In particular, there was one in the assets. There was a significant variation from year to date. One of the main differences was disposal of fleet. We're not expected to be disposing of as much fleet in the next year as we did in the past. We did touch on aged care before and some of the vehicles that were disposed in there. There's also a variation to our internal charge rates for plant that's basically been understated previously, so that'll be going up in the proposal. Will be offset in other areas.
One other question. There's a some major plant for a piece of machinery, street sweeper. Can you expand on that, please, Mr. Husband?
Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. What we've found there is there's an opportunity to save expenditure simply because we contract out that service at the moment. So part of that is to invest in that plant and to actually provide those services internally.
Cost saving?
Cost saving, correct, yes.
Thank you.
Do any other councillors have any questions, please? Councillor Martin.
If Councillor Carr's finished, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I'm finished for now. Thank you.
I think you might be finished. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I was just wondering, there's an increase of I'll probably cover this partially anyway, but there's an increase of 700,000 employee costs, which I know it's explained in 4.1.7 fairly easily. However, is there any commentary that could be provided why it's gone up so much? I know superannuation's increased by, I think, 0.25 or 0.5% this year. Is that correct? 0.5. 0.5, yep, there we go. So why has it sort of increased 2.15%?
Previously, so there's also work cover costs, although it's been frozen. Our particular unique work cover system with our change will have an impact there. We also have EBA increases to look at across the board as well.
Fantastic, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Top of page 11 with regards to childcare services. The cost of the Shire is 1 million last year. However, the income's expected to actually increase this next financial year, and the cost expected to decrease. So I was wondering what's driving that. I was also wondering, isn't education a state responsibility? And also maybe why it's not a break even, are parents paying for their service, or are we just giving that away? There's a lot of questions there, sorry, Madam Mayor.
Mr Hall.
Partly the funding has also gone up, but we also, in the fees and charges document, have identified that our fees for attending such services are well below that of our counterparts. So we're forecasting to increase those fees. To put it up to full cost recovery in 1 year would be unwise. So we're scheduling to try and catch up to those processes over a period of time. The service delivery and where it fits in local government is really not for officer comment. I'll leave that to council.
Thank you.
Mr Hall. So just to sort of summarise there, that we haven't put the costs up associated with the cost of living increases, for lack of a better word, and we're sort of undercutting private enterprise there, and we're looking to actually bring that up to a market level. Is that a fair assumption, Mr Hall, over time?
I would say yes, you did touch on, so council also has legal obligations where we're in the same field as a private provider, not to use council's position to impact the private provider.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also, Madam Mayor, I think commentary, I guess a question on page 17 for the school crossings. I noticed that's up to $100,000 this year to actually operate them through the Shire. I was just wondering, is that actually a state government responsibility or a council responsibility?
Again, council, it's probably not for an officer to make that decision. The scheme has traditionally been a shared funding arrangement. There's certainly been a lot of discussion in recent years that funding arrangement is no longer covering the costs, and it would certainly be part of a service delivery process that a council could look at.
Thank you, Mr Hall. Councillor Martin.
I think Councillor Carr covered a few of the other ones I'm going to ask, but waste recovery, you've sort of covered all that, so I'll leave that, Madam Mayor. I'm just covering ground that Councillor Carr's covered.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you. Mr Hall, if green waste bins were to be introduced, what would the cost be per household, on the basis that every household that currently has a bin would get a green waste bin?
I can only go from recollection, and I might pass to Mr Husband if you can add more, but I believe when we considered this last year, there was going to be a capital cost to each particular resident of, I'm thinking about, I think it was $100, but there would also be a service increase of about 85. And that was 12 months ago. I imagine those costs would increase. Mr. Husband, do you have anything further to?
Yes, through the Mayor. No, we don't have an updated cost on that, but it would be a substantial increase.
Yep, and those costs will be passed directly on to all people that have been.
That's correct, Councillor.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Councillors, any further questions or any questions of clarification?
Just as a matter of interest, Madam Mayor, I just see the Alexandra Pavilion. There's 19 line items of charges. So it's and for various means, it seems to me there's some solid fees there, but it's just for the matter of interest for the public here tonight. It's a new building and there's 19 separate charges for that building. Seems to be very complicated to me. So. But anyway, that's just the general interest.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, there is a recommendation tabled on page 19 for your consideration.
So, Madam Mayor, can I ask some questions about the fees and charges?
You can ask further questions. Yes.
Thank you. But everyone done with the budget?
Yes. Yes, you can ask about the fees and charges.
Mr. Hull, in the fees and charges, how many of them went up greater than 2.75% that we need to be aware of?
Mr. Hall.
I'll use some mathematics.
But which?
We said there's about 500 different fees and charges.
Correct.
Yeah.
293 remained at or below. So therefore you could say that 207 did not, but that may not necessarily be accurate. There was a number of elements, and I think Councillor Northcote touched on one, where the fee structure has actually been changed from what was previously. Our building permit fees is another one, for example, where the range of the building value has increased, so it's not exactly comparing apples to apples.
Thank you. If dog owners fail to pick up after their animals, what's the fine for that, Mr. Hull? It's not a fee and charge, I suppose.
No, the penalties for a breach such as that is a penalty under the Domestic Animals Act. It would actually have a number of penalty units, and that price will change depending on the penalty interest set by the government each time. It's a statutory fee, Councillor, not a council fee.
Thank you.
Can I just
Councillor Wilson.
interrupt?
Councillor
sticking
Wilson.
with the doggy do.
Councillor Wilson.
It is under the Local Government Act that our officers can fine people for leaving their dog faeces in a public area. Is that correct, Mr. Hull?
Not under the Local Government Act, Councillor.
Under any act, sorry, that our local laws can fine people for leaving dog do.
Yes.
Yes.
So our local laws officer have a delegated authority under a number of different legislation to provide them power to issue infringements.
Yes.
Excellent, that's what I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, just to round off that question, can council increase that to provide a bigger deterrent for the issue currently crippling our community?
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
The penalty units are set in legislation, so it's outside of council.
So we cannot.
Thank you, Mr. Hull.
Apologies, Madam Mayor, we deviated.
Thank you.
Recreational reserves. I believe this is the first time that they've been included in the draft fees and charges document. Is that correct?
I'm not sure we can say it exactly as that. So all our fees and charges have been there previously.
Yeah.
We did have, again, a report went up to council perhaps during the year, maybe after our last year's fees and charges was set that outlined a different structure for how the fees and charges for recreational reserves would be charged.
Any further questions, councillors, on the draft budget or the fees and charges?
No, Madam Mayor.
If there's no further questions,
Well, I'd just like to say,
Councillor
Madam Mayor,
Norcott.
that this is a draft budget, so it's out there for public comment.
Okay, we'll just
Bear in mind that, as Councillor Carr suggested, that we've only had this 3 to 4 days ourselves, so it's there for everyone to do their thing. and
Thank you, Councillor.
Take an interest in it.
Thank you, Councillor Northcote. There's a recommendation on page 19. Is somebody prepared to move that, please? Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the recommendation 1, that Council approves the draft budget 24-25 prepared in accordance with section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020 for the purpose of public consultation. 2, that Council gives public notice of the preparation of the draft budget 24-25 and draft fees and charges in accordance with Council's community engagement policy, and that they be available for community feedback from Friday the 26th of April to Friday the 17th of May 2024. And 3, that Council considers any feedback on the draft budget or draft fees and charges at the Council meeting to be held on Tuesday the 28th of May 24 at 5:30 p.m. in the Portland Council Chambers, in the Council Chambers, Portland. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, the budget was done a little bit differently this year in terms of we went out to the public and sought their input in preparation of the draft budget, and we had a number of sessions across multiple locations within the Shire, which I was fortunate enough to get to all of them, and the community put forward some fantastic ideas. There's a number of submissions that come out of them. We've seen submissions from officers and we've seen submissions from councillors, and I believe we are going to respond to those submissions from the community members. And it was good to see. I need to get to this page. But as an outcome of those submissions, some things made it into the draft budget. So we've got 50,000 there at the moment to maintain the condition of the Hayward Old School. There's 25k for accessibility projects. There's a submission about, Christmas activities, lights on the tree, that's in the budget. 3 major events, they put in submissions, that's in the budget. That's it at this point in time, that's highlighted. But what I'm trying to explain here is that the submission process does work, and I encourage everybody in future years to take that opportunity to put forward their projects and their suggestions where we should prioritise your money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep it short and sweet. On page 22, although it's a bit confusing, it highlights we are making some important headway. The net underlying result gives an indication how we're travelling as a council. That we do need to rein that in a little bit, or be as close to zero as possible. For a rural council like ours, that's probably impossible, but it's a goal we should be aiming for, is to get a net underlying result of 0. I do want to note, I know there was some commentary during some of the community sessions, Madam Mayor, about rate capping and that, we've got big rates or whatever the case may be. I do want to point out in the actual document there at section 4.1.1L of the budget, our average rate is 1,843, and I do want to point out there's a report released by the ESC in 23 that said on average for 21, 22 shires of our same size, Theirs is 2,116. So our ratepayers, compared to other shires that ESC considers, we're actually paying less. Now, is that necessarily a fantastic thing? Well, no, it's about what we do, what the Shire does with the ratepayers' money. Now, everything's subjective. We might have more pools, might have more transfer stations. But it's about this result this council does. But I think the commentary that's out there in the public that our ratepayers are paying more than others is certainly unfair, because the evidence would say they are not, Madam Mayor. I don't want to steal Councillor Northcott's thunder, but I think we do need some feedback from the community on this, and constructive feedback. There's no point having feedback that is the same process that no one wants to pay more rates. That's a no-brainer. Everyone up here wants to pay less rates. But what those rates do, we pull them together, we provide services for the community. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help the community. And I think people lose sight of that sometimes, Madam Mayor, that we're here to help the ones that need it, the less vulnerable. And that's important, because that's important in society, that we do look after those people that do fall behind or do need that help, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly following on from fellow councillors' comments, we do follow a statutory process, and as Councillor Carr indicated, that we did go out to the community to get their ideas or suggestions for inputting into this process. No other level of government does this. You don't see the state government asking for input into their budget process, or the federal government. So the local government is the closest government to our community, and has, I think, gone out of its way even to get information from our residents. In saying that, I think that the community should be looking at our budget, our draft budget, and make further comment. People are hurting out there, and whether we're lower than other shires or not, I don't sort of see that it doesn't have any effect on the pensioner that's or the sole parent that's paying their rates and getting increases, and the farming sector, a huge sector in which they pay exorbitant amounts because of their value of their property. So there is a number of good things in this budget, Madam Mayor, and it's certainly one that I believe that the community should look closely at it, and closely at the fees and charges as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. No further comments. Thank you, councillors. In closing, I would just like to say that this is going out for public consultation. That's what the recommendation is for our draft budget and fees and charges. I encourage the community to look at this and respond to it accordingly. I'd like to thank all of those community members that attended all of our budget sessions across the Shire in recent weeks and gave us feedback. And I'd also like to thank the CEO and the staff, Mr. Hall and his team, for putting this budget together. And thank you to councillors for their consideration tonight. It's been moved by Councillor Carr and seconded by Councillor Martin. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item, councillors, is 9.5, the Glenelg Shire tourism numbers for the summer period of 2023-24. Ms Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Information report for the councillors here, just covering our visitation numbers during December to February. We had an excellent result across the Shire in a cost of living crisis. And so even though through the industry we're hearing that there is an impact on domestic and international travel, we saw an uptick in our numbers. Council contributed just under $300,000 to some events over that period of time, which had a $3.1 million impact on the local economy, and saw about 17,000 people come through during those few months. We saw in Nelson and Casterton an increase to our visitor centres. In Portland, we saw a decrease in the second half of January, but that's consistent with other centres along the Great Ocean Road. Our main LGAs of visitation are Mount Gambier, Warrnambool and Geelong, and people are staying longer across the 3 months, which is pleasing to see. I'm happy to take any further questions on the report. A nicely presented report as well, so credit to the team for putting together some graphics there, so it's a much easier read for the community.
Thank you, Ms Miller. Is there any questions, councillors? If not, there is a recommendation there on page 23.
I'd like to move that recommendation, Madam Mayor, that the Council notes Glenelg Shire Summer Visitor Report for 23-24.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair McDonald. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Alistair McDonald, any comments?
Just the only comment, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make is that it's still all the work that's been done in the past is starting to pay off, and that we're still getting the visitors into the region and into Portland and into the Shire. It's great to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to thank that report being put together, especially drawing people's attention to page 5. Council-led events and their economic impact. After all, it is everyone's rates money that is going to these events. And clearly it shows what our best bang for our buck is. So I think from memory, the cruise ships, I think we spent about $20,000 there. We had about a $445,000 return. How close am I there?
Yep, 463.
Yep. Far off. Multiply that by about 5, and I think you get what we've spent on the other events, but yet the return on the cruise ships far outweighs the return we got on the other events. So that's why we do invest in things like cruise ships, Madam Mayor, because they are the best bang for our buck. One thing I would like to say, and I think Ms Miller, you sort of stole my thunder there, that while visitor numbers were down, due to obviously costs of living increases, people's nights were longer, so people are finding more things to do in the Glenelg Shire while they are here. And that's what we need to do. We are further from Melbourne, we are further from Adelaide. We need to capture that market and have them here, staying here longer, so they're spending more money. So if we do lose volume, which we have done, those extra days, or extra 1.1 days, I think it was, something like that, we're not losing out, or our rate, or the industry is not losing out monetary wise. That's what we do make a living off of. I'm obviously from that industry, so it's very important to see those trends happening, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Mayor, question. Do we know the Victorian tourism estimates of what it costs a person to stay during the day compared to an overnight stay?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilson. I haven't got those figures, but I can take them on notice and get them back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry to hit you with that one.
That's fine. Thank you, councillors. The recommendation's been moved by Councillor Alistair McDonald and second by Councillor Martin. Those in favour? Carried. Councillors, we'll move on to 9.6, which is the Community Grants Round 2 for 2023-24, the programme allocation. Councillors, we will separate this into the categories as tabled on pages 25 and 26. The first category we will deal with is arts, culture and heritage. I have declared a conflict of interest in this item, so I'd like a mover for a chairman. Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that Councillor Wilson take the chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Northcott. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Robin McDonald. Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
I better come close to the CEO just in case I get things wrong.
I'm going to suggest that we ask the officers to make any comment on this particular category in case there's any questions, and then we can just move that those grants be approved.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Okay, thanks, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Yeah, we've got about half a dozen applications in the arts and culture category. Generally, it is quite well subscribed, this category, with lots of active groups in the Shire. Really, probably the biggest thing with the arts and culture category, it does have extra expectations around the application. So there are at least 2 criteria that the groups have to meet, so it's a little bit more rigorous. And yeah, happy to take any questions about those particular projects.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No?
Surprise?
Easy.
It's pretty straightforward.
Are we looking for approval?
So what we need is a motion that approves the arts, culture and heritage category of the community grants program.
Yep, I can do that.
Moved by Councillor Carr, second by Councillor Northcote. Any further discussion?
Yes, thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Deputy Chair Wilson. Look, I think it's fantastic to be able to award these community grants to these organisations. I would like to highlight the total project costs estimated at $73,000, you know, and we're giving out $20,000. So pretty good return on investment there, and it's a great outcome for those community groups, and I thank them all for the time, effort in applying to the community grants program.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair Wilson. I think it's important to highlight that normally we do have an event there to give this information out as a surprise, but here is the surprise. Thank you, Chair Wilson, for that surprise.
Thank you. Yes, it usually gets dealt with in committee, so the public are seeing it as it's hitting the table. So that's it. Okay, I'll put the motion, and the motion is to approve the arts, culture and heritage allocations. Those in favour? Against is carried. Thank you.
He's gone.
He's got not got it together.
Yes.
How'd it go? No, that's not me.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
So we'll do with the community calls. Yeah. Yep. First. Yep. Yes. The next, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Did you get 10 out of 10 or not?
The landing?
Excellent, excellent. We'll deal with community strengthening next, and Councillor Carr, you have declared a conflict in that item.
I'm going to declare another conflict of interest, if that's okay, Madam Mayor, for community events. Portland District Motor Enthusiast Club, which I'm a member of.
So you okay, thank you. So councillors, I'll amend that and say that we'll deal with the community events and community strengthening categories where Councillor Carr has declared a conflict, please. Jane, could you please give some commentary around those 2 categories, community events and community strengthening? Thanks, Jane.
Yeah, thanks you, Madam
Ms. Miller.
Mayor.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So probably look about 10 applications there. I'm adding up as on the screen, and a really good breadth of applications as well. What we found is we often get repeats, so we have the assessors have tried to give to new events or people who haven't got in previous rounds, between round 1 and 2 or previous years. The community strengthening, you'll see there is quite a large array of events that were nominated in that, and of course oversubscribed again. And happy to take any questions on any of the projects.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mrs. Miller, I noticed the fantastic one too, so I'd like to promote it if I can for a little bit. The Nelson Tourism Association Vic Bream Classics. Can you provide us some information on that?
Yep, that is that number
40?
Number
Number 2?
Yep, event ID number 4.
You've got the other numbers?
Yeah,
there, so.
you're right, that's fine.
Community events.
So yeah, look, that's a grand final event held in November in 2024 in Nelson, and those the funding for that is to contribute towards the running costs for the classic. So
It's a statewide event?
I actually don't know really about
It's the Victorian
It brings
Championship.
some additional commentary. It brings tourism dollars to Nelson from far and wide, showcasing the amazing fishing in the Glenelg River, and the events will bring an estimated $280,000 into the Nelson economy, and they applied in round 2.
A lot of money to the economy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors?
There's a bit of confusion there, Madam Mayor. You've got community events, which is the 3 categories above, and then we're talking strengthening communities.
So we're doing both of them, Councillor
Both in
Northcote,
one.
community events and community strengthening categories. So we're doing all of them. Miss Miller, I wonder if I could just ask a question. The Dartmoor and District Progress Association, is that for their signs for their rail trail and tourism?
Correct.
Excellent.
It is.
Excellent.
So I've been working with Vic Tracks on that
Thank you
one.
very much. That's good to get that over the line. Councillors.
Actually, Madam Mayor, if I might, no, I'm sorry. I actually wanted to ask one because I see Uniting Way do a huge amount of work in the community, and they've got a grant up here for 700 and so I was wondering if you could provide some insight / promote of what they're doing.
Yeah, so they're stocking little free pantries is the project across the Shire with hygiene kits for girls. So, and noted that was an extremely strong application from Uniting Way.
They do a huge amount of work in the community, so it's fantastic.
So there's little pantries, Miss Miller, are those little house things we see around the Shire that have non-perishable food in them that people can take if they need?
No, the hygiene kits.
Oh, the hygiene kits, is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Madam Mayor, we seem to be getting a lot of attraction to our Portland airport. I was just wondering if we can give a comment on the application made by the Portland Aero Club and their $5,000 request. Thanks.
Could you give me there's so many.
Community strengthening, it's the
Second
second item.
strengthening. Yeah. There's so many in my spreadsheet, so I can give you the accurate information. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it's a technical upgrade of the financial unit that governs the delivery of the gasoline. So it's a 3G system which is outdated and will be decommissioned. So they need for that facility so people can actually refuel.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Miller. Okay, councillors, if there's no further questions, could somebody please move community events and community strengthening?
Looking for a motion?
Yes, please.
Well, I'm prepared to move a motion that we pass the community events and community strengthening sections of the grants round.
Thank you, Councillor Northcote. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that, Madam.
Councillor Alistair McDonald. Thank you. Those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Can you get Councillor Carr, please? Councillor Martin, we'll move on to recreation in a moment.
What's your step?
Don't let me forget to do public calls. Yeah, I know. No, I know. Don't let me forget. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the recreation category, please.
Thank you, Madam
Councillor
Mayor.
Martin.
I wish to declare a conflict.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, there's a table of allocation of funds on page 26 under recreation. Are there any questions in relation to any of these applications?
No.
If there are no questions, can somebody please move that the allocations.
Happy to move that they be approved. Happy to move that the recreation applications be approved.
Thank you,
I'll
Councillor
second that,
Wilson.
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Alistair McDonald to second. Those in favour? Carried. Can, I suppose you go. Yeah, off you go. Yeah. Yeah, they need to. That's right.
Right. Is that a drip or?
Yes.
Yeah. You left the tap right.
Yeah, who left the tap on? It's all right. Don't worry. Sorry. It's just a joke. Get a bucket. Councillors, the only category left now is the public halls that are tabled there on page 25. I will recognise to councillors also that there is a second part to the recommendation, which is about contacting the successful applicants and inviting them to the presentation evening. So if you could just see that on page 26. So the allocation of funds for public halls. Are there any questions in relation to those three applications? If there are no questions, can I have a mover, please, and a seconder?
Happy to move.
Councillor.
Add the other part in the same resolution.
And happy to move the three applications plus that we contact all successful applicants in round 2, 23-24, and invite them to attend the presentation meeting to be awarded their funding allocation.
Happy to move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carr, and a seconder, Councillor Martin. Those in favour? Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We've awarded the $82,745 to 32 separate community groups this evening on a number of wonderful projects. Thank you, councillors. We're up to item number 10, which is notices of motion. Councillors, as you are aware, I submitted a notice of motion to the CEO recently on a moratorium of seismic testing in the Otway Basin. If you could just indulge me to read that motion point by point. Number 1, that the Glenelg Shire Council support a moratorium on seismic testing, oil and gas exploration and drilling in the Otway Basin to protect the fishing and tourism industries and the pristine environment. Number 2, that Council writes to the National Offshore Petrol Safety and Environmental Management Authority, the Victorian State Government and the Commonwealth Government officially requesting such a moratorium be placed over the Otway Basin region. And number 3, that the Glenelg Shire Council write to the applicant companies advising them of Council's position in relation to seismic testing, oil and gas exploration and that drilling should not occur in the Otway Basin and requesting them to withdraw their plans for the region.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillors, if you can just indulge me, as you know, we had a deputation from Professor James Dunbar who discussed this item with us and gave us a huge amount of information in relation to this. And it was our opinion that, we really needed to support our fishing industry and our tourism sector from any potential risk to the environment within the Otway Basin. So hence the notice of motion at tonight's meeting. Are there any queries or questions at all, councillors? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just raise these in, a public forum. With our governance rules, item 26.3, notice of motion must relate to the objectives, roles and functions of a council as outlined in the Act. Obviously, this is in federal waters well away from the Shire, so how's the motion allowed?
I'm happy to answer it, but I'll let you answer it, Mr CEO.
My advice on this is that the assertion at least, there's no evidence of this, and the motion has been carefully worded, is that these seismic blasting may damage our fishing grounds, which are clearly a big issue in Portland, and part of the role of local government is to advocate for the local community and the economy of the local community, so I feel that this fits clearly within our realm of responsibility.
Fair enough. Just one further question, Madam Mayor, with regards to sort of governance rules. 26.4D, a notice of motion must call for a council report if it proposes to impact the rights of any person who has not had the opportunity to contribute their views to this council. Obviously, we had the deputation from the one side, but we actually haven't had one from the other side. So.
Yeah, I don't think that we at this stage, there's no approval to go ahead from the federal government, so I don't believe at this stage we're impacting on any rights. We've asked for a moratorium, which doesn't mean necessarily that their long-term rights would be impacted. So this is just part of a process at this stage. If I would say though that if we had a request to come and speak to council about this from whatever groups are proposing to do the drilling, and we haven't had any request that I'm aware of, then we would accept that as well. But I don't think the trigger's there for, based on, for a report at this stage. I don't think we have sufficient information. I think when we get a response back or there's a decision by government, then we might need a report.
Thank you. Any further questions or
Comment?
Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you stated, the fishing industry would be under threat of this process, and not only marginally, I believe that significantly the fishing industry will be highly affected. Our whale watching will be non-existent, as the whales would not come into Victorian waters because of the blasting. The number of whales in recent years have only just started to come into our area, and we can happily say that you can just about pat them by standing on the lee breakwater as they rub their bellies on the rocks. Something that Warrnambool would only dream about. It is a great concern of our community, and it is our role as the council to stand up for our community as well as our businesses. And I welcome those that are in the gallery tonight that have come here to see this motion put forward. The amount of damage that this would do to our krill is more than significant, Madam Mayor, and we would see the end of pretty much the Bonnie upwelling, and that concerns me greatly. We are following other sister councils along the coast who have moved similar motions to this, requesting for moratorium. So we're not on our own. We're not doing anything outside the local government legislation. So, Madam Mayor, I ask councillors to seriously consider this and support your motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Alistair MacDonald.
Just reiterating Councillor Wilson's words, Madam Mayor. Again, we have a social responsibility and a moral responsibility to the creatures of the ocean that supply this community with, for the recreational anglers, food for their tables and sport, and also to the commercial fishers, the lobster fleet and the deep sea trawl fleet. We have an obligation to those folk in the community to that derive an income from the ocean, and I really commend the group over there for bringing it up and their passion for looking after our oceans and protecting our marine species.
Thank you, Councillor Alistair MacDonald. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would actually like to sort of go, so I've got other councillors to go behind me, because I'd hope you listen to what I say.
Haven't you already spoken?
No, you ask questions. Easy. Obviously, the governance questions, I sort of queried those, Madam Mayor, and that's fine. During the presentation, there was also that we received insinuations that the EPA and the government was not 100% correct, I would say, that they used some other words, which I won't say in this chamber here. So it's wondering how this council can put forward a motion that links itself with some of those comments. Also asked for some source references for the material that was presented. I did have 2 climate change references given to me, but also a link on a movie that I had to pay for, Madam Mayor, so I don't consider those references very good with the presentation that was done. The presentation also went on seismic testing about climate change and also touched on wind towers as well, so it was a little bit all over the shop. However, I will take heed in Councillor Paspaliaris from Warrnambool. She actually articulated very well on the topic. Yes, it may be in federal water and it may be a federal issue. However, Glenelg, like Warrnambool, has in its 2040 plan, its 4-year plan to champion for the environment and acknowledge environmental change as well. So this motion that's put up there would seem to sort of sit within that wheelhouse. I also acknowledge Councillor Foster from Moyne's comments, who highlights from the 2021 Senate inquiry into the seismic testing as well. Councillor Foster acknowledged that it's just unknown. The results are unknown, the testing's unknown, they do not know. But however, on page 28 of the report, it notes a change of commercial fishing catches 1 month after the survey of East Gippsland. Flathead catches decreased by 71%. School whiting catches decreased by 99.5%. They were her comments. I haven't read the report myself. Those were the comments that she did provide. I must also acknowledge that gas is a major stepping stone to carbon neutral future. From what I understand, it's a baseline, Madam Mayor, for the state of Victoria. So if we're going to ban gas exploration, then we need to acknowledge the flow-on effects for energy pricing that goes along with this as well. My biggest concern, however, is with the SPA itself and how each company needs to do testing in the same patches. There needs to be a policy change, Madam Mayor, and that's done at the ministerial level. I also note that the motion itself may not be 100% correct, as essentially NOPSEMA is essentially just administration. We need to be sending this to the minister, not necessarily NOPSEMA. Also note that council's role is not to write to companies and say we don't morally approve how you go about your business if they've ticked all their boxes. Now the reason I raise these points are they have been presented before me. I need to do a fair assessment and I'd like other councillors' input to those so I can actually make up my mind.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Martin, we're not telling the company what to do. We're writing to the company advising them of our position in relation to seismic testing and oil and gas exploration. We are not advising them. We're not telling them what to do. We are advising them of our position. It's as simple as that.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just point 3, we're requesting to withdraw their plans for the region. That's in the motion, sorry, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Martin, we are advising of our position and asking them to withdraw their plans for the region. Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'd just like to point out the key word, moratorium. It's stopping an activity just for an agreed period of time. We're not asking to ban it or to definitely. It's like, hey, let's put the brakes on until we understand more.
That's right.
My understanding.
That's my understanding, yes.
Of the definition.
Thank you, councillors. Any further questions? Okay. I've put forward the motion, which was seconded by Councillor Wilson. Those in favour? Those against?
Call for it.
I'll call for a division, Madam Mayor. It seems to be one vote short.
Yep. Okay, call for a division. Those in favour? Please stand. councillors. Those against?
Abstain, Madam Mayor.
Can you abstain?
You can.
No. Noted. Thank you, councillors. The vote is 6 with 1 abstaining. The motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to questions from members of the community. We have some questions here from Mr. Matt Jarlett, which I will read. Having read the Municipal Monitor's report, I can clearly see the need for continued presence of the monitors until the changes they have recommended have become standard practice. What I would like to know is how much do you estimate their continued presence going to cost the ratepayer of this shire? Mr. Hall.
Madam Mayor, I think it's on the record that the municipal monitors were here for a period of 3 months with a cost of about $66,000. Under the new direction provided by the Minister, it's slightly different. We have one monitor here following the CEO appointment, so we're still not exactly sure how long that process will be, so that is a variable. The other monitor will be here to the end of the year, but in a reduced capacity. So just suggesting that our estimate has got a number of variables to it. I would hesitate to say somewhere probably between $20,000 to $40,000. We do have about a $20,000 allocation in the budget, as we obviously weren't aware of the outcome of the Minister's letter prior to preparing the budget document.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Second question. In the 2023-24 financial report, year-to-date March, on page 3, it states that new borrowings of $7 million will be needed to finance major capital works projects. What capital works projects will require this funding in the next 3 months? I'll ask Mr. Husband to respond, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Mr. Jarrett, for your question. As you may be aware, the capital projects that have been carried forward are mainly renewal projects and are all about keeping existing assets in good order. The capital projects we expect to complete in the remainder of this financial year include the Heathfield-Lindsay Road near Caston, the Mummetta-Wannon Road near Dartmoor, Tahara Merino Road near Merino, Trelaws Road and Calstock Road and near Conda, the Merino Community Shelter, Cape Bridgewater Stage 2 project, the Portland's Arts Centre Climate Control Upgrade, the Merino to Cavendish Street Connecting Pathway, and Living Locals Street Furniture in Portland. That's along with a number of smaller renewal projects across the Shire.
Thank you, Mr. Husband. Number 3, can you please explain the justification for the expense of the footpath trading permit, because it seems extremely high? Mr. Hall, can you respond to that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Mr. Jarrett for the question. As previously referred to, we looked at similar councils and how they approach footpath trading, and also looked at councils' cost recovery. Since receiving Mr. Jarrett's questions, I've looked at the fees and charges document, and what isn't clear is that the permit is actually for a 2-year period, not a 1 year. So we'll need to amend that and make that clearer in the document. And apologies for any confusion.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Hall, for that clarification. I just asked the CEO, are there any further questions?
Madam Mayor, required under clause 54.10 of the governance rules to advise council that there were 3 questions we received from Mr. Gary Hum. However, those questions were nearly 5 hours past the deadline and have therefore not been dealt with this meeting. Mr. Hum has been advised he can submit those questions to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr.
And Mr. Hum has also been further advised, and this didn't cause the lateness, but he's also been advised of the appropriate email address to send the questions to, which is in the governance rules as well.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you.
Just a point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
On the last, not relating to question time, on the last vote when we called for a division, you mentioned that a councillor abstained. Where is that in our governance rules?
We'll have to
I'll
vote.
take that on notice and I'll get back to you before the meeting finishes.
Page 26, section 42, voting.
David. Thank you. Mr Hull.
Madam Mayor, in the Local Government Act, a vote to abstain is taken as a vote against the motion.
Yeah. Thank you. That's why I said it was passed 6 with the abstinence vote.
Yeah, and then, sorry, just to clarify, and then when we called for a division,
Yes.
okay, it would be taken in the minutes as a vote against. Okay. Understood. Thank you.
That's what the Local Government Act says. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Hull. Just, councillors, before we move into our confidential reports and close the meeting to the members of the public, I'd just like to publicly take this opportunity to thank Mr Greg Wood, who's acted as our CEO for the last 5.5 months, and he's only got a couple of weeks to go. And look, and 6 months has gone extremely quickly. And I'd just like to sincerely thank Mr Wood for his time here and in steadying this organisation through, you know, some really, really torrid times and working with our monitors and working with our senior management team to get things back on track for this council. We are sincerely grateful for your work and your diligence in your role as CEO. So thank you very much, Mr Wood.
Can I make it?
Yes, certainly.
I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity for being here. I think that the Glenelg community has tremendous potential for the future, and I certainly wish everyone well. I think that there's a whole range of exciting projects, not just council's projects, in fact probably more importantly some commercial projects that will come online over the next few years, and there's some challenges in terms of strategic planning, and I do wish you well in that process.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, councillors. I'll move to the confidential reports. There is a recommendation there on page 29 to close the meeting to the public.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. A seconder. Councillor Robin McDonald. Those in favour? Thank you. Members of the public, we now close the meeting. We will resume after that, and then we will open the meeting later. But if you'd like to go, thank you for your attendance this evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you to our leadership candidates, and thank you, everybody. And thank you, managers and staff and CEO, for your time tonight and the agenda. The meeting is now closed. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, could you explain that the motion that's in the agenda has been
there
taken
was,
off?
on page 29, there was a next meeting motion, but we've actually just had a discussion around that, and our governance rules allow, and the Local Government Act allows us to call a unscheduled meeting at any time with the CEO, so we will do that as deemed appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Thank you.